4-1 at home, while the Commanders dropped to 7-4, 3-3 on the road. Washington led it 7-3 heading into the half and took a 10-6 lead into the fourth quarter. Jalen Hurts gave Philadelphia a 12-10 lead on a 1-yard rushing touchdown. Then Saquon Barkley rushed for 2 touchdowns just 20 seconds apart on the clock. The first was a 23-yard rush at 4:58, then a 39-yard touchdown at 4:38. Barkley carried the ball 26 times for a total of 146 yards. Hurts 18 of 28 passing, 221 yards. He got sacked 2 times for a loss of 15. On the other side, Jaden Daniels, 22 of 32 passing, 191 yards, a touchdown and interception. He got sacked 3 times for a loss of 20. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Oh no, my phone.
Hear that? It's the sound of a skater dropping her phone and smashing it on the ice. Yep, it's definitely broken. But at Verizon, we got you. This holiday, trade in any phone, any condition from one of our top brands and get a new Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus on Unlimited Ultimate and Watch 7 and Tab S9 FE 5G. That's over $1,800 in value. So you'll save big on 3 great gifts. Only at Verizon. Service plan required for watch and tablet. Over $1,800 value based on phone, watch, and tablet. Trade in and additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the propane tank on your grill first before hosting a tailgate.
Let's fire up.
Here, let me try. Seriously? You didn't check the propane?
Who wants chips?
Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds.
Salt and vinegar?
You're in good hands with Allstate.
Savings vary. Subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
No way football is played in the fall and winter
because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
It is a Football Friday live right here on Football Full Circle. That is FFC, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network in Sirius XM. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. We set the stage for Week 11 around the National Football League. It should be a great weekend, and Thursday night was indicative of that. A monumental and significant matchup on a Thursday night in Philadelphia to decide the top spot in the NFC East. A divisional duel that we will see carry over into the 12-game Sunday slate. Huge games on Sunday. Incredibly impactful as we enter late November and that playoff chase starts to crystallize just a little bit more. And Scott, that is our charge here on this Football Friday to preview every game, all 12, on the NFL Week 11 Sunday slate. And, of course, look back and recap the Thursday night opener to kick off this week in the NFL as well.
Yeah, we have separation Saturday, in college basketball and in golf as well, right? You kind of have that this weekend, Ben, in the NFL. Philadelphia did. They separated themselves a little bit. Pittsburgh can do the same in the NFC. Kansas City can all but clinch the number 1 seed with a win at Buffalo, since they would hold the head-to-head tiebreaker against them, and they have it against Baltimore already. So a little chance here for the really, really good teams to show that they're really, really good. And Philadelphia, I don't know if they showed that last night. It took them a while to get going, but they accomplished the ultimate goal, and that's win the game and grab a 1.5 and really 2-game lead over Washington now in the NFC East.
And that's the important thing, Scott, with that divisional duel on a Thursday, a battle for supremacy within the division. The result is magnified. It is amplified, and we will see that in many different spots on the Sunday slate for week number 11. But let's start by looking back on Thursday night. The Eagles riding a 5-game win streak with a half-game advantage entering Thursday night football at Lincoln Financial Field in the city of brotherly love in front of the Commanders in the division. Were a 4.5-point favorite at close. 49.5 was the total. And Scott, as you mentioned, the Eagles a little bit slow to start. They trailed early in the second half before they really figured things out in the fourth quarter. 3 rushing scores. Jalen Hurts finding Pater to start off the scoring, and then really the running back addition that is Saquon Barkley has proved monumental for this Philadelphia team. 2 rushing touchdowns, both more than 20 yards on the ground in a 20-second span of game clock to separate Philadelphia from Washington. The Commanders would add a late touchdown in the closing half minute of the contest. By at that point, it was already out of hand. The Eagles, that game and a half lead now in the NFC East with a 26-18 win over Washington on Thursday night. The Birds have won 6 straight. They cover last night as a 4.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, and maybe the biggest thing you take out of this game, if you're a Philadelphia fan, Ben, is another terrific performance out of the defense, right? Shut down Terry McLaurin. I mean, just one reception late in the game, when the game was, for all intents and purposes, over. I mean, they just gobbled him up. They kept Daniels in check, another kind of mediocre, if you want to go stats-wise, game from he didn't look the same, but he just looked out of it. The zip on the ball wasn't there last night. I mean, I know we're watching on TV, but he just, that out of all the games I've seen him play, that was by far the worst. He just didn't seem in sync. So I'll give credit to Philadelphia defense. They've been playing well, shut down Dallas last week. It shut down Washington again. They've had a number of weeks here. And if you're going to beat the big boys, Detroit, San Fran, pick whoever you think may be the big boy, you're going to have to do it on defense. And the Eagles defense has shown they're capable of doing that, at least the way they're playing right now.
And the defense was dominant. The offense that we had seen be on the upswing was very slow to start until that fourth and final quarter. Kicking woes last night for Jake Elliott, one of the more consistent and reliable kickers in the NFL, missed a field goal on the opening offensive possession for Philadelphia, missed a PAT on the touchdown that Jalen Hurts scored early in the fourth and final quarter that gave the Eagles the lead, but it was only 2 after the missed extra point. But then it was really Saquon Barkley. And Scott, we previewed this game together yesterday. I had mentioned Saquon Barkley's rushing plus receiving yards prop of 113.5, a number I felt comfortable that he would go over because in 7 of the first 9 games as an Eagle, at least 116 scrimmage yards in those contests. And the Commanders have struggled to contain the rushing attack of their opposition. It was a huge day for Barkley, nearly $150 on the ground, finishing with 146, and those 2 key touchdowns in that 20-second window from 23 yards out with just under 5 minutes remaining in regulation. Then next offensive play for the Commanders on that ensuing possession. Jaden Daniels throws a pick. 2 plays later, Saquon Barkley bursts through the hole from 39 yards out to score his second touchdown in truly just 20 seconds elapsing off the clock. That was the big difference for Philadelphia to cruise comfortably to a cover and a big divisional win.
Yeah, and I don't know what Dan Quinn is doing in the offseason, but maybe we should get him to join us on SportsGrid because he said that he realized his defense wasn't playing well, which is why he went for the touchdown on that 4th and short rather than kick the field goal. I don't know if that's just hindsight, Ben, being 2020, but, in the end, the Philadelphia did score the 2 touchdowns. Defense did let them down, but, that's the big move, and I don't agree with it. To me, you got to kick the field goal there. We can get into it here a little bit. You got to take the lead. I don't care how bad you think your defense is going to play from here on out. Right. Bottom line is you grab the lead in the 4th quarter with 8 minutes left on the road. Your defense to that point had been playing great. That's why, I don't know, he's Nostradamus here. Somehow or another, he knew his defense was going to fall apart in the final 5 minutes. Give him credit, I guess, but I still would have kicked a field goal there.
Yeah, I agree, Scott. You got to take points on the road in a key divisional game. We'll talk outlook in just a moment, but also Jalen Hurts. Not the most prolific passing day. A.J. Brown did not explode as we expected. No passing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts in a game that featured a large total of 49.5 that did stay under and even got within 2 scores because of that late touchdown from Jaden Daniels to Zach Ertz in the closing 30 seconds of the game. But we said that Hurts was going to hit pay dirt, a number that got stronger and stronger throughout Thursday at minus 120, but still probably wasn't juiced enough because Hurts has now scored 9 rushing touchdowns for Philly in the last 5 games. He has scored in 6 of the last 7. If you had that much production of finding pay dirt for anybody not a quarterback, the number would be closer to Saquon's number last night at minus 180. And, of course, he scored multiple touchdowns as well. So a big night for Jalen Hurts on the ground. Philadelphia gets a crucial victory. They have won 6 straight. They have covered in 4 of 6. 3 times as a favorite covering in this 6-game win streak. And maybe most significantly there, Scott, all 3 wins and covers that they have had as a favorite in this win streak have come against NFC East foes. It's why Philadelphia now has a 1.5 game lead over Washington atop the division.
Yeah, and that touchdown prop, I saw it at minus 125. That's where I had to put it in, and it's still in. It's amazing. Like, he does get some 5, 6, 10-yard runs. So you get, the double-edged sword there. You get that where you get the push-tush, which they scored on last night. But I will say, Ben, it is amazing how many times Philadelphia stopped at the half-yard line, creating this push-tush. It really, I think it was Barkley that got tackled at the one last night.
Yeah.
They created the half-a-yard touchdown run for Philadelphia for Hurts. So it is amazing, and that's probably why it's minus 125 versus the minus 150 or 200 like we've seen with Derrick Henry and some of the others who score touchdowns every single week because, the boys in Vegas think that, they're relying on Philadelphia to be stopped at the one. But, it's one of my favorite Super Bowl props that I lose every single year, the longest touchdown under 1.5 yards, and I keep on betting the over, and I'll be darned if every single year there's a 1-yard touchdown run in the Super Bowl because teams, I don't know what it is, but they get tackled at the one. It's amazing. Or you get, the pass interference in the end zone.
Yeah, you protect that pylon at all costs. Now we'll talk outlook for these two teams battling for the top spot in the division. What remains the rest of the way? One more meeting between both Washington and Philadelphia comes our way week 16. But as the odds makers tell us, Scott, Philly in full control of the NFC East. More on Football Full Circle comes your way next.
Fall is coming.
Don't look like an idiot at work.
Know your stuff.
Football and everything else.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The average rate on a 30-year mortgage in the U.S. edged lower this week, ending a 6-week climb. This update brought to you by Cintas. The rate slipped to 6.7% from 6.79% last week, according to mortgage buyer Freddie Mac. That's still down from a year ago when the rate averaged 7.4%. Borrowing cost on 15-year fixed-rate mortgages, popular with homeowners seeking to refinance their home loan to a lower rate, also eased this week. The average rate slipped to 5.99% from 6% last week. A tropical threat taking shape in the Western Caribbean has become the latest named storm of the busy Atlantic hurricane season. The tropical system currently located in the Caribbean developed into Tropical Storm Sarah on Thursday afternoon, just weeks before the official end of the Atlantic hurricane season on November 30th. The National Hurricane Center issued advisories Wednesday for the development of a potential tropical cyclone. Hurricane watches are now in effect over portions of Honduras, with tropical storm watches for portions of Nicaragua. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Every day, Cintas service reps help businesses get ready for the workday. They provide freshly laundered workwear delivered every week. Mats, mops, restroom and cleaning supplies. First aid and safety products to help your employees stay safe. They even test and inspect fire extinguishers and emergency lights. Cintas helps keep your business running smoothly. See what Cintas can do for you. Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
You ever try fixing your car and realize you're missing that one part? Yeah, been there. That's why eBay's my go-to. They've got millions of parts guaranteed to fit. I'm talking brake pads for when yours have seen one too many miles of stop and go. Oil filters, because you don't mess around with your engine care. Even got this cold air intake on my watch list. I might just go for it. To keep the ride cool and your DIY streak hot. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Fall is almost here.
It's time to stow the lawnmower and get ready for all that glorious action coming your way. Stay tuned to SportsGrid for all the strategies, angles, and info you need to get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC, it is Football Full Circle. So it's got a huge divisional matchup to kick off Week 11, full of a ton of significant contests on the horizon. We'll preview the Sunday slate in just a few moments. But let's look at the impact of Thursday night in Philadelphia beating Washington at home at the Link, covering as a 4.5-point home favorite. The Eagles entered week number 11 as a minus 240 favorite to win the division, a half game in front of Washington. Now 6 consecutive wins for Philadelphia. A game and a half is the lead. They had the head-to-head tiebreaker with one one more divisional matchup remaining, week number 16, and the odds makers make it seem, Scott, as though the NFC East has already been decided. Philadelphia minus 550 to win the division. Do you think it is as clear-cut as the odds makers might say in the NFC East?
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. Like, listen, they have the lead. They hold the tiebreaker right now, so everything is looking towards Philadelphia. But there's a lot of games left. To lay minus 550, but you have to have like a 3-game lead for me with 4 games left to lay minus 550. I wouldn't even put that in a parlay. I mean, what's the point? It's only a 2-game lead, for goodness sake. Something crazy could happen to Hurts, God forbid. That can flip just like that. So no, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't lay anything more than like 3, maybe 350, but 550? No. I've seen too many crazy things happen to lay that kind of money.
Yeah, I do believe that's where it's trending right now. The Commanders a slightly easier schedule than that of Philadelphia down the home stretch. Washington also a bye upcoming after dropping 2 straight. Philly does seem to be in that pole position. Scott, you said it very early on to start off the show. It wasn't easy for the Eagles. It was a commanding fourth quarter, and good teams find ways to win games in a variety of manner. When you look at Philadelphia, second best price to win the NFC at 4-1. Still a little bit over $2 behind Detroit, but that number has gotten better and better and shorter in the last 2 to 3 weeks, certainly on this 6-game win streak for the Birds. Where do you stack the Eagles up in terms of that true contending tier in the NFC?
It's funny, watching the game, I was texting with the guys, and I said, this team's neither one of these teams is beating Detroit or even San Francisco, right? Then the second half happens, the fourth quarter happens, and then you think, well, okay, it may be, the defense played well, Barkley ran well, right? So I still put them on a tier lower. I still think ultimately, that was the team, Ben, that I thought was going to challenge San Francisco even more so than Detroit. I just don't have any faith in Dan Campbell. Not that Nick Sirianni is turning into Don Shula here, but I thought it would be Philadelphia, but I got to see a little bit more from the passing game, from Jalen Hurts. I got to see, continue to play good defense. And ultimately, I do think they are better because Detroit, I just don't have any faith in Campbell. I just don't. Call me crazy, but I just don't in the postseason. Again, not that Sirianni is great. So right now, to me, it's Detroit, San Fran, and then Philadelphia, but I'm willing to move Philadelphia up. I am.
Yeah, I think Philadelphia is there. I've shared I had Philly to win the Super Bowl before the year. I thought they were going to win the NFC. The coordinator additions of Kellen Moore offensively, and namely Vic Fangio on the other side, would be the difference. And that defense right now under Vic Fangio is playing at an elite level. Philadelphia looking really, really good. Sandwiched in between right now, Detroit plus 195. The Eagles at 4-1 in the third best price in the NFC. Entering Week 11 Sunday slate, that is the San Francisco 49ers at plus 550. So Scott, Thursday night sets the stage for many important games on the docket on Sunday. Perhaps none more than one we will all have our eye on. It is a game of the year potential in Western New York. Its meaning for the rest of the season, now that would be debated even by those around Orchard Park, but it's Buffalo and Kansas City. The Chiefs, the lone undefeated team in the NFL right now at 9-0. But a victory margin of just 6.4 points per game. Some trying to poke some holes in the undefeated resume of the two-time reigning Super Bowl champs. Buffalo has won 5 straight. They are 8-2. Oddly enough, Scott, for just the 5th time since the merger in the National Football League way back in 1970, in games week 11 or later, this is just the 5th ever meeting between two teams with at least 8 wins. The 8-2 Bills and the undefeated and unblemished 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs. 2.5 point spread in favor of Buffalo. Total stands at 46.5. How do you see Sunday playing out in Orchard Park?
That, by the way, is amazing. You would have thought there would have been more games than that, right? I mean, we're not talking, 14-0. It's so that's kind of interesting. It's a big game for obvious reasons, but break it down a little bit, right? So we're all anointing Kansas City as the best team of the AFC, number 1 seed, home field advantage, blah, 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 right? But if they were to lose, that not only brings Buffalo back into the picture, it also, even more importantly, brings Pittsburgh back into the picture. Buffalo would be one game back, but they would hold the head-to-head tiebreaker, so you would only need Kansas City to lose one more time if, theoretically, Buffalo wins out. And then with Pittsburgh having to play Kansas City later this year, if Pittsburgh was able to win against Baltimore this week, now they're one back, and they would control their own destiny, which you can't say too often against this Kansas City team. So a lot of ramifications on this. When everything is said and done, Ben, I don't know how you bet against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. You know, we're giving you the numbers: 11-3 straight up as an underdog, 12-1-1 against the spread as an underdog. If you put him in a 16 tease, or 6-point tease rather, as an underdog, 14-0. And so the one loss that he had, or the three losses that he has, have been close losses. So they're not blowouts. So put Kansas City in the tease, and seemingly you'll win that bet. So. Yeah, you have to go with Kansas City. Give me KC. I know they're not winning by a lot. I know they're not blowing people out. I know they're getting the benefit of the doubts. They're getting breaks, this, that, what have you. But, I look to bet on teams that get those breaks because, generally speaking, that stuff doesn't stop. They don't stop finding ways to win football games. I think they're the better team on paper. And you're getting a couple of half points. Honestly, I would buy the hook and get it up to 3, but I'm betting Kansas City.
Yeah, what a great teaser spot to take those 6 points and go through two key numbers of 3 and 7. Kansas City as an underdog since the start of last year. 5 times, 5 outright victories, including earlier this season in the Super Bowl 58 rematch, winning by double digits on the road against San Francisco. More from Sunday next.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
A long pass up to Baylor. Baylor goes in, has it.
1960, Elgin Baylor of the LA Lakers scores 71 points versus the New York Knicks.
His first year with the Lakers as a rookie, he led a team in scoring, rebounding, and assists.
Baylor averaged 27.4 points and 13.5 rebounds during his 14-year career with the Lakers. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
In case you've been worried about AI taking your job and destroying the world economy, perhaps fear not. A large, well-known fast food chain is quietly dropping its AI-powered drive-through automated order-taking system after some mishaps.
Would you like extra sauce with your 2,100 orders of chicken nuggets?
Believe it or not, these are actual scenarios.
I'm sure you asked for 40 dozen pounds of butter.
The fatal flaw? Voice recognition AI that can't identify misidentified spoken orders.
I just want you to know that I have complete confidence in the long-term success of this mission. By the way, here is your 4-gallon can of bacon-topped caramel ice cream.
Follow me at Chicapalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
Their offense is anemic. I'm not surprised they fired Waldron. I'm surprised Eberflus hasn't been fired, to be honest with you. And I don't really care who they play at quarterback. They're overrated. They're terrible. And another thing, the Bears' D is their corners. They are anemic. They can't stop a runny nose.
It's Pharrell, Coast to Coast with Scott Pharrell. Weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. On the home of the winning edge. The SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere, even while the wife's talking to you.
If you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC. A little bit more on the game of the week and a potential game of the year in Buffalo between the Bills and the Chiefs. Buffalo has won 5 straight games. They have covered in 4 of 5. They have gone over in 4 of 5. 2.5-point spread in favor of the Bills. KC, an underdog 5 times since the start of last year, an outright victory in all 5. First, some news and then the narrative. Scott, around a field goal number for Sunday in Orchard Park. And, of course, some big news in terms of the field goal kicker of KC yesterday. Harrison Butker, dealing with a knee injury, has been placed on injured reserve by Kansas City. They elevated, or at least signed, Spencer Schrader from the New York Jets practice squad. Schrader was in there last week for the Jets. So much better than the kicking woes they had earlier in the year with Greg Zuerlein. And somehow mismanaged that they did not protect him on the practice squad, and now he ends up in KC. The Chiefs always seem to find those advantages. Scott, are you concerned at all about Harrison Butker's absence in a game that could be decided around that key number of 3?
That, or I'm more concerned about someone wanting a player from the New York Jets. You know, if you're candid, really? Right, yeah, I mean, go find one from Baltimore or Buffalo or, so whoever. I know it's only a kicker, but just, kind of goofy when you're taking people away from the New York Jets. So, yeah, I mean, listen, this guy's been as clutch can be, right, over the years, with Butker. So, a knee injury, if it's 4 weeks, this is not like clearly a little sprain or, a little tweak, and then we're just going to hold him out for a week. This is a 4-week thing. So, if it's a 4-week thing, it could turn into a 4-month thing. That's how I kind of view those 4-week things. So, I definitely would be a little concerned. I mean, they're going to be playing in a lot of close games. We've seen it already, right? They play in close games in the regular season, let alone the playoffs. So, if you don't have Butker ready for the postseason, at this point, you should. But, bottom line is I would be concerned. They got Pittsburgh on the schedule. They got Buffalo this week. They do have some tough games. They got Denver again. So, that is a concern for me. I would be if I'm a Kansas City fan.
Scott, Buffalo's running away with the AFC East, not only at 8-2, but the only team with more than 3 wins in the division. They're minus 20,000 to win the AFC East for a 5th consecutive year. Kansas City, of course, unbeaten. There are some contenders. The Chargers are 6-3. We'll talk about LA's game on Sunday night in just a little bit. But the Chiefs were favored to win the AFC West for a 9th consecutive season, and they're a minus 3,000 favorite to do that. What's so interesting when you compare these two teams is not just the regular season matchup and its meaning, but beyond that, the significant stage of the postseason. Buffalo has beaten Kansas City in each of the previous 3 regular seasons, only for KC to outperform Buffalo in the playoffs. Buffalo about to win the AFC East for a 5th straight year in its previous 4 divisional championship winning seasons and thus playoff appearances. They have been ousted in the divisional round 3 consecutive years. They have been ousted from the postseason. The team that handed Buffalo its exit, that would be Kansas City, 3 of the last 4. Josh Allen was saying earlier this week, listen, we know it's a big game, but it's also just week 11. Buffalo has the perspective to understand this is not going to define their season. They're hoping that a 4-1 ticket to win the AFC can be cashed finally this year, where they have come up short despite having the playoff pedigree, or at least the position to make a deep postseason run.
Yeah, 2 ways to look at this, Ben. You could say, well, if Buffalo wins, then they have a shot. Well, let's start with Buffalo loses. If Buffalo loses, well, they're done, right? Well, think about Baltimore. Baltimore at the beginning of the year. After losing to Kansas City in the postseason, people said, okay, if Baltimore doesn't win this game against Kansas City, then forget about it, right? Well, they don't win. Yeah. But at this point, when you list teams who you think might be able to beat KC, most people include Baltimore. So I wouldn't say a Buffalo loss this week would necessarily exclude them from still having a chance to beat Kansas City in the rest of in the postseason. So if they win, same thing though. If they win, well, you could just say if you're a Kansas City fan, well, they beat us before in the regular season. That still doesn't mean they're going to beat us in the regular season or in the postseason. So not that it doesn't mean anything, but ultimately I'm not going to change my view on whether I think Kansas City is going to get to the Super Bowl or not based on this game, or Buffalo's chances of beating them in the postseason based on this game.
Yeah, I think the Bills recognize that as well. Scott, after that wonderful divisional round game in the 2021 season, the 42-36, the Chiefs scored with 13 seconds left in regulation. That following regular season matchup, actually in Arrowhead, felt like it was Buffalo's Super Bowl, to clap and answer back. Now it's a very impactful regular season game, but Buffalo knows what lies on the horizon. We'll talk an even more impactful game, the battle for the AFC North, next.
the winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Thursday Night Football, the Eagles rallied to a 26-18 win over the Commanders. Philadelphia 8-2 with the victory. They improved to 4-1 at home, while the Commanders dropped to 7-4, 3-3 on the road. Washington led it 7-3 heading into the half and took a 10-6 lead into the fourth quarter. Jalen Hurts gave Philadelphia a 12-10 lead on a 1-yard rushing touchdown. Then Saquon Barkley rushed for 2 touchdowns just 20 seconds apart on the clock. The first was a 23-yard rush at 4:58, then a 39-yard touchdown at 4:38. Barkley carried the ball 26 times for a total of 146 yards. Hurts 18 of 28 passing, 221 yards. He got sacked 2 times for a loss of 15. On the other side, Jaden Daniels, 22 of 32 passing, 191 yards, a touchdown and interception. He got sacked 3 times for a loss of 20. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Shop early, save big all month long during Black Friday build-up at Lowe's. Right now, get select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees starting at just $59.98. Don't wait to save. Shop these deals today, in-store or online, because Lowe's knows deals. Discount taken at time of purchase while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
After you use Bounce Dryer sheets and realize how fresh, soft, less wrinkled, and less staticky your laundry can be, you'll put a sheet on it every time. Like those socks that smell like they've been through a marathon. Put a sheet on it. Or that blanket that's got wrinkles on its wrinkles. Put a sheet on it. Maybe even your chatty coworker who keeps distracting you. Okay, Bounce Dryer sheets can't do it all. But for fresher, softer, better laundry, put a sheet on it with Bounce.
Days are getting cooler.
The shadows are getting longer. You know what that means.
It's football weather. So bundle up and keep it here for all the latest strategies and gridiron information.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC. So, Scott, there is the narrative, there is the performance. There, of course, is the atmosphere in Western New York on Sunday between the Bills and the Chiefs. It's impactful for the race for the top spot in the AFC, what it would mean for the outlook for both of these conference and perhaps Super Bowl contenders the rest of the way. But really the most impactful game on Sunday is the battle for the top spot in the AFC North. The 7-2 Pittsburgh Steelers, who have won all 3 starts that Russell Wilson has made, against the 7-3 Baltimore Ravens. Much like last night on a Thursday in Philadelphia, elsewhere in the western part of the Commonwealth, the Steelers have the half-game lead in front of the Ravens. But unlike in Philadelphia, the home team is not the favorite to win the game or to win the division. Baltimore greater than a $2 favorite to win the AFC North despite trailing the top spot in Pittsburgh at this moment. And the Ravens got a full field goal favorite on the road in the Steel City. Let's start right there with that number of 3. Is the right side favored, in your opinion, for Sunday's critical AFC North showdown?
It doesn't make much sense. In my opposite picks, I like to throw out there the boys in Vegas, dyslexia is kicking in because they got it backwards. Wrong team is favored, right? Same thing here. You have Pittsburgh, the home team, Baltimore, the road team. Pittsburgh, the better record, Baltimore, the lesser record. Pittsburgh has won 4 or 5 in a row. I mean, they're not the Baltimore slumping, mind you, but still, it does kind of point towards Pittsburgh, doesn't it here? And yet Baltimore's the favorite. All this Lamar Jackson talk for MVP, and that's fine and dandy. But if they were to lose, now they're 7-4 and really behind the 8 ball. So I don't know how you could give the MVP to a team to a player whose team is 7-4 versus some of these other numbers that are being put up there. So no, I would have thought Pittsburgh. Maybe you can't make Pittsburgh a favorite because there's still doubt about the Steelers for whatever reason, but I wouldn't have made him a full field goal, underdog. We have a litany of trends here that all say take the underdog in this series. Every game is literally decided by 3 points or less. So I won't bore you with that, but it's a big number. So I'm on Pittsburgh. You want to give me Pittsburgh +3 at home in this series? I would be on Baltimore +3. Whoever is getting 3 in this series I'm taking it because, literally, 17 times out of 20, the games have been decided by, less than a field goal or a field goal or less.
Scott, two of the most consistent franchises in the last 2 decades in the NFL. You could argue the Steelers are the most consistent franchise in all of the history of the National Football League. But the reason I point that out is Mike Tomlin is in year number 18 in Pittsburgh. John Harbaugh is in year number 17 in Baltimore. Since Harbaugh arrived at the Ravens, games between the Steelers and the Ravens where a team has been favored by a field goal. To your point, the field goal underdog is covering in a prolific manner. When the Ravens have been favored by a field goal in Harbaugh's 17 years against the Steelers, they are 0-10-2 against the spread. Baltimore legitimately has never covered a number when they have been at least a 3-point favorite against the Steelers in any of those 12 potential chances. The Steelers this year an underdog 3 times, including last week in Landover against the Commanders, and the Steelers have won outright in all 3. Another number that stands out, Scott, that total, 48.5 for a Ravens-Steelers AFC North battle. What happened to the game I love?
Yeah, that's the second highest total ever between these two teams. It's amazing. And that all goes to, you blame Pittsburgh for that? Nope. You blame the Baltimore Ravens defense, which is, a shell of what it normally is, year in and year out. They give up a ton of yards. They give up a ton of points. I kind of doubt this is going to be a shoot. This is one of those, Ben, where you just say, you know what, don't make this stuff harder than it has to be. Give me Pittsburgh plus the points. Give me the under, because that combination in this series has hit a gazillion times. So, and this is the start of the monster stretch that we looked at with that Pittsburgh Steelers schedule. Right now, who knew we really should have included Washington as part of that monster stretch as well? Because obviously the Commanders are great, but they got to play Pittsburgh. They got to play Baltimore a couple times. They got Cincinnati a couple times. They got Kansas City on this schedule. I mean, it is just a landmine from here on out for Pittsburgh. So let's see, realistically, can they, go 50-50? Do that, you'll get into the postseason. If it's right 50-50, you'll win the division.
For sure. And Scott, you just mentioned it right there. The Steelers have to play all 6 of their divisional games still, starting on Sunday against Baltimore. And outside of the division, we'll see how long the Bengals can hold on to stay invested into making a playoff run, even if it seems a little bit far-fetched at this moment. Not sure how far-fetched, as we'll discuss in just a bit. The Browns are not what we expected. We understand that. Still, divisional games are never easy. And the 2 other non-division games are against the Eagles and the Chiefs. It is brutal. I'm almost hoping, Scott, the Steelers do win. And again, I'm going to take the 3 much like you. If the Steelers win outright and they extend their lead in the division to a 1.5 over Baltimore, I would wonder what the price is on the flock to win the AFC North, minus 260 right now. And then I might start to buy back into Baltimore if that number lessens, or we see a favorite flip even perhaps, knowing what Pittsburgh still has and knowing Baltimore will get the Steelers in their own home in week number 16. So I would just say that's another way to look at these divisional prices. What a great game we have in store on Sundays. Got any more thoughts on the AFC North battle before we go to another AFC North team that must win a game this week on Sunday night?
Yeah, the other thing I'll point out is Baltimore's schedule is no easy cookings either. They have the Giants on there, and they've already played Kansas City, but they got Philadelphia as well. They have the same thing. NFL, Ben, did a pretty good job. You can debate on whether you like it or not, but they did a good job of backloading a lot of teams' schedules where they play all their division games. Like, there's been a number of teams looking at the games this week where it's like, okay, this is the first division game they're playing. I mean, we're in week 11. So, it's good because you want to be able to decide the division, going head to head against those teams, I suppose. But the Ravens schedule is no easy cookings either.
No, it is certainly not, Scott. And as you mentioned, we are going to see that in the NFC North in a couple of spots starting this week as well. The Ravens are 2-1 in the division. That one loss to the Cleveland Browns, but they have beaten the Bengals in both of those games, although, of course, both decided by just 4 combined points, which leads us to Cincinnati on the road on Sunday night against the Chargers. LA is 6-3. They have covered in all 6 wins. Jim Harbaugh gets somewhere, whether it's in the collegiate ranks or in his 2 stops in the NFL, he wins right away, as we are seeing with the Bolts, winners of 3 straight. Cincinnati is 4-6, 2 games below 500. Limited and very limited margin of error for the Bengals, and they find themselves, Scott, as just a 1.5 underdog. Pretty close on that money line Sunday night in SoFi in Los Angeles. It is now or never for the Bengals. What do you think the result is come Sunday night?
Yeah, we keep on saying it's now or never, but all these teams keep on coming back down to the pack. You know, if Denver at 5-5 loses at home to Atlanta, which is possible, all of a sudden now 4-7, you're not necessarily out of the picture. So I like Cincinnati. I'm not going to throw them out, with the dishes, with the dirty dishwater, as the saying goes. They have not played well. They really haven't. Every time you think they turn it around, they can't get over the hump. Schedule's a little bit too tough for them, but I think their offense is a little bit too much for the Charger defense, and I don't know if the Charger offense can keep up with that Bengals offense. You want to give me 1.5 points? I'll take Cincinnati on the road. I think they win the football game.
Yeah, Scott, I agree with you, and it's no knock against the Bolts, who have gone under in 7 of 9 games this year. They have looked really good defensively. In fact, they enter Week 11 as the best scoring defense in the NFL, the only limiting teams to less than 2 touchdowns put up per game. But we know what the Chargers are, we know what they want to be, and we know how they have taken advantage in their 6 wins against maybe not the best competition on the other side. Not going to knock them for it, but the Chargers play from in front. They want to establish the run. They want to play from in front. They want to control tempo. If the Bengals can get off to a fast start, even though the defense struggles for Cincinnati, can the Chargers play from behind? That's where I think Cincy has the advantage on Sunday night in SoFi. So we started with the most critical games of the Sunday slate, but there's still a bunch to break down up next.
Yeah, it's getting cooler.
Football weather is here.
Stay tuned for all the latest odds, strategies, and info. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The average rate on a 30-year mortgage in the U.S. edged lower this week, ending a 6-week climb. This update brought to you by Cintas. The rate slipped to 6.7% from 6.79% last week, according to mortgage buyer Freddie Mac. That's still down from a year ago when the rate averaged 7.4%. Borrowing cost on 15-year fixed-rate mortgages, popular with homeowners seeking to refinance their home loan to a lower rate, also eased this week. The average rate slipped to 5.99% from 6% last week. A tropical threat taking shape in the Western Caribbean has become the latest named storm of the busy Atlantic hurricane season. The tropical system currently located in the Caribbean developed into Tropical Storm Sarah on Thursday afternoon, just weeks before the official end of the Atlantic hurricane season on November 30th. The National Hurricane Center issued advisories Wednesday for the development of a potential tropical cyclone. Hurricane watches are now in effect over portions of Honduras, with tropical storm watches for portions of Nicaragua. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Every day, Cintas service reps help businesses get ready for the workday. They provide freshly laundered workwear delivered every week. Mats, mops, restroom and cleaning supplies. First aid and safety products to help your employees stay safe. They even test and inspect fire extinguishers and emergency lights. Cintas helps keep your business running smoothly. See what Cintas can do for you. Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
You ever try fixing your car and realize you're missing that one part? Yeah, been there. That's why eBay's my go-to. They've got millions of parts, guaranteed to fit. I'm talking brake pads for when yours have seen one too many miles of stop and go. Oil filters, because you don't mess around with your engine care. Even got this cold air intake on my watch list. I might just go for it. To keep the ride cool and your DIY streak hot. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on FFC, we preview every game on the NFL Week 11 Sunday slate. And Scott will look at order of where they stack up on the odds board now as we hit the biggest games of the weekend already. The Detroit Lions, perhaps the best team in the NFL, winners of 7 straight with an 8-1 record and a cover in all but one of their 8 victories, which of course came last week, coming back to beat the Houston Texans, are now nearly a 2-touchdown favorite at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Total is 46.5. It is the largest spread, Scott, 13.5 points in favor of Detroit we have seen all year long. The Lions are a great cover team. Can they get this one?
Mac Jones back at quarterback for Jacksonville, right? 4-15 against the spread, Ben. That's even counting last week's cover against Minnesota. But 4-15 against the spread as an underdog. 3-18 straight up for his entire career as an underdog, as far as thinking actually they're going to win the football game. Not going to happen. We've outlined Detroit's against the spread numbers, best against the spread team in the NFL. You know what? There was a similar spot just a couple of weeks ago against Tennessee, laying double digits, 11, 12 points. They blew them out. I'm guessing the same thing's going to happen here. I just on paper, how can you make a case for Mac Jones in Jacksonville? Give me Detroit. I'll lay the 2 touchdowns. Why not?
Jacksonville, oddly enough, 2-8 football team writing on the wall for Doug Peterson, but as an underdog, 5-1 ATS this year. They've covered in 3 straight games as an underdog, including their last 2, getting at least a touchdown. But again, Scott, I agree with you. We have seen Dan Campbell and this recipe. Detroit beats up on bad teams. 30.5 is the team total for the Lions. Could be a little bit more digestible than laying nearly 2 touchdowns. We were together earlier this week for the breaking news out of Chicago. Offensive coordinator Shane Waldron was fired. Will it be the interim OC bump for the Bears? That is the question as they get ready to welcome in their bitter rivals, the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay off a bye in a bad divisional loss at home in Lambeau against those Lions entering the bye. Jordan Love has been inconsistent, very turnover prone, has thrown an INT in every start he has made this year. 5.5 point spread, Scott, in favor of the Packers on the road at Soldier Field. 40.5 is the total. How do you see it?
Yeah, biggest point spread in Jordan Love's career as far as being a favorite is concerned. Short career, obviously. I don't know how you put American money on the Chicago Bears, Ben. Just in general, then you throw in the Packers. Packers 10-0 straight up and against the spread their last 10 meetings against the Bears. They've been favored 27 of 31 games against the Bears the last 15-plus years. 30-12-1 against the spread in those 43 meetings. And not all those have been with Aaron Rodgers. You know, some of those have been with Jordan Love. So we all know the issues, what's going on with the Bears. By the way, the Bears, the hardest remaining schedule. We talked about how difficult it was for the Ravens and Steelers. Strength of schedule, Bears have the toughest one left. Give me Green Bay. I'll lay, I'd lay up to a touchdown, if not more.
Scott, if they had fired Matt Eberflus, the head coach, maybe I'd buy into the interim bump in Chicago, looking a little bit more competitive. Not sure just getting rid of the OC does that. A lot of turmoil in this locker room. Some reports, how true are they? But where there's smoke, is there fire? It's not a good recipe right now for the Bears. And then you add in the Packers and the dominance in this rivalry. The Rams hoping to resurrect their season. A game below 500, looking to bounce back and stay in the playoff chase in the NFC and perhaps the division. 4.5 point spread in favor of Los Angeles on the road against a 3-win Patriots team, just 2 wins away from going over its preseason win total. New England again, 4.5 point home dog in Foxborough. 43.5 is that over/under. Can the Rams bounce back after the bad loss on Monday against Miami?
Yeah, we got to sweat out not only New England and Carolina with their season win totals all of a sudden, right? So Rams, great spot for them, really is. I know they're coming all the way back east, but that's okay. 25-8 straight up as favorites, not so much as underdogs. Only 7-15. Yeah. So there is a clear line in the sand with this Rams football team. Rams off a home loss as a favorite, as they had against Miami. Hit the road as 3-point favorites or more. How about 95, 68, and 7 is the NFL, including 29, 15, and 2 since 2020. Point is, teams that are supposed to win that don't bounce back. And I think this is a great bounce back spot. All great numbers. How about Sean McVay? 18-5 straight up against the AFC, including 10-2 on the road. Give me the Rams. I'll lay. Again, I'd lay up to a touchdown with the Rams.
Yeah, it feels like you're getting a discounted number, not only LA on the road, traveling cross-country, but because they did not look good on Monday night, I think they will figure things out. Intriguing game, Scott, that somebody's got to win, even if maybe they don't want to win the game for their draft position. The Saints snapped the 7-game skid last week, using the interim bump and interim head coach Darren Rizzi. They host the Cleveland Browns, who were on the bye last week. Jameis Winston, another week in the system. It is a dead-even pick'em. Minus 108, Scott, for both money line prices. 44.5 is the total. Somebody's got to win. Who does on Sunday in the Big Easy?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 negative stats. First one against the Saints. Teams that break a 5-game losing streak like they did last week, next game, only 14-31. But before you plunk your money down in the Browns, just keep in mind, Jameis Winston, starting quarterback for the Browns. In games with which the point spreads is plus or minus 3, which it is here, 13-24-3 against the spread, which shows he does not win these toss-up type of games. I'm going to take the Saints just because they're at home.
I go under 44.5. It's the highest total of the year for Cleveland. I don't really know what will get 45 points. The Saints snapped a 7-game skid by looking so much better defensively and used a couple of field goals missed by Younghoe Koo to hold on. It was their first under in quite some time. That game is going to be at least fun to keep an eye on because it could be chaotic. The Vikings last week, Scott, touchdown favorite in Duval County against Jacksonville. Sam Darnold, the regression starting to happen. 3 interceptions last week. The Vikings, though, still 7-2. They have won 2 straight. A 5.5-point road favorite in Nashville against the Titans. What do you like?
Yeah, this is just going to be my stubbornness. I'm going to go with Minnesota. I had them last week. They should have covered against Jacksonville. They didn't. I think they get the deal done against Tennessee.
Yeah, got to play better football in this spot. The Titans, just a 2-7 football team who have not looked great really all year, but in any of those 7 losses. I will say, Will Levis, clean football last week, still got beat bad by the Chargers. We'll talk Aaron Rodgers and the Jets and Anthony Richardson and the Colts up next.
The boys of summer become the champions of fall.
The World Series is on its way.
And SportsGrid brings you every angle. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
4 more games to preview to wrap up the NFL Week 11 Sunday slate. We do that here on FFC. The Jets, a 3.5-point home favorite at home at MetLife, welcoming in the Indianapolis Colts, who return to AR. Anthony Richardson back as the starting quarterback for Indianapolis. 43.5 is the total. The Jets laying a number, expected to win a football game. That has not worked out very well this season for Aaron Rodgers and New York. Scott, in this spread, 3.5, which way would you lean?
Yeah, this might be the toughest game on the board for me. I'm going to go with the Colts, though. You know, the Jets have only 27 more points at this point last year than they did, or this season than they did last year with Zach Wilson as quarterback. In fact, the record after 10 games was better last year with Zach Wilson, 4-6 versus 3-7. So I can't lay 3.5 even at home. The Bluebirds at the Meadowlands are going to come out quickly if they get off to a slow start. Give me the Colts. Yeah. Give me Richardson. You're getting the hook there. I'll take the 3.5 with Indianapolis.
2 things for me, Scott. Anthony Richardson to score at plus 175. 4 rushing touchdowns in his first 3 career games last year. Only scored in the season opener. If you're going back to AR, you got to design your offensive scheme to highlight what he can do while he figures things out throwing the football. And again, I kind of look at the Colts, Scott, because as we discussed earlier this week, if you put in Flacco to tell your fan base and your roster, hey, we can make the playoffs with just better quarterback play, but then you bench Flacco to go back to Anthony Richardson, you can't be telling your roster you're quitting on the season. Colts plus 3.5. The Dolphins now laying a touchdown at home, hoping for 2 consecutive wins, taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. 43.5 is that total. Hefty spread now in favor of the Fins. Can they win by a touchdown or more?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think so. They've failed to cover 5 straight home games. This is their worst streak since 2010-11. Maybe they get the win, but I don't think they win by the 8, 9, 10 points that you're going to need here. Vegas leads the NFL in turnovers. They've been down double digits in all their games this year. I don't doubt they'll be down by double digits here, but the old backdoor cover gives the Raiders the cover.
Yeah, when you look at the Raiders, Scott, 7 losses this year, only 2 covers in any of those 7 L's, 6 times an underdog. It's a game that maybe I lean under if the Miami defense continues to improve, as we saw on Monday night in L.A. San Francisco, 6.5-point favorite at home against the Seattle Seahawks. 48.5 is that total. Out of the bye, with Christian McCaffrey in his season debut. An uneasy victory, but still a road win in Tampa against the Buccaneers. Now back at home, Scott, laying near a touchdown in a divisional game. How do you see it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. You got good trends. San Francisco has beaten Seattle 6 straight, covering 5 of the 6, but this obviously is not the same San Fran team. Recently they've not been good against the spread at home, as have the 49ers. 7-5 only straight up, 3-9 against the spread. That all said, even with Seattle coming off a bye, I'll take San Fran. Starting to get a little bit healthier. Let's see if they can put a couple of wins together here. I think they win by 10 points.
Yeah, Seattle won its first 3 games of the year, but based on competition across the other side, Scott, and only being 1-1 against the spread, some people were questioning it. Turns out they were right. The Seahawks have lost 5 of their last 6. They have not covered in any of those 5 losses. And San Francisco did win last week outright, but it was the first time in any of the 5 wins for the Niners this year they did not cover, the game did not go over, and San Francisco did not score 30 points at least in the win. I expect a big offensive day out of San Francisco. Thought there would be one last week. There wasn't. This is perhaps, Scott, to me, the most peculiar spread the entirety of the Sunday slate. The Broncos, a home favorite against the 6-4 first place Atlanta Falcons. Denver, a 1.5 favorite, minus 130 on the money line at Mile High. Does it make sense to see the Broncos laying points at home?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're 5-5, so it's not like we got a 3-win football team here. So, yeah, it does. You want a quirky little stat? Games after facing Kansas City, Denver 8-0 straight up, 7-1 against the spread. Now, you may say, well, that's just fluky, but just know that they're 0-6 after facing the rival Raiders. So maybe there's just something to this. I don't know, but I like the under 44.5. Falcons on a 20-12 under run. Denver's great at home, under 48, 31-1. So give it the under, and yeah, I'll lay the 2.5 with Denver.
The Broncos 5-5, 7-3 against the spread. Haven't been favored often, but when they have, Scott, a perfect 3-0 against the number.
Yep.
I kind of think the Broncos win, and it's not a lot to cover a 1.5 spread. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. That does it for us this week on Football Full Circle. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. The show returns Monday, noon Eastern time on SportsGrid Radio.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.